Hello YouTube, in this video I'm going to give you pointers on the squat. I'm not going to teach you how to squat because there's a gazillion videos about that topic, but I want to cover some advice that I rarely hear mentioned and that I think is very important. So overall, these are things that are going to start becoming relevant the more you squat, but if you're brand new, it can also help you because I'm going to demystify some of the aspects of the knee flexion, and I'm going to also encourage you to follow best practices. So the squat, to me, for someone who is adapted to the movement, is the best way to grow your legs. And to me, if you have the ability to squat and you enjoy it, it should be your bread and butter. You should make it your main knee flexion pattern and then create a line of variation and specificity from that, and that is going to take care of your legs. You can create massive tree trunk legs with just squat. Of course, you're not limited to only squat, you can do other things. There are a lot of problems with the squat. However, the squat is really demanding on the lower back. It demands a certain amount of mobility that novices don't have, and therefore there are certain issues you're going to run into. The first one being lower back pain. A lot of people have tremendous lower back pain from the squat, even more so than from the deadlift, and actually a lot of people snap their lower back on squat. And the reason why is not necessarily because they have poor technique or they have a weak core, but it's because they don't squat properly. They're not utilizing the right muscles. When you squat, there is going to be a recruitment of the lower back, the glutes and the arms, but you don't want to over-exaggerate it. The recruitment is going to just happen. You need to remember this is a knee flexion, not a hip hinge. And therefore, the way you squat reflects that. When you go down on a squat, what breaks first is the knee flexion. All right, you engage the movement and initiate it by a knee flexion, and then the rest follows. Then you go down. As you go down, your torso is going to naturally lean forward. It's going to engage more of the posterior chain because you're entering a hip hinge pattern as well. But you do not, for any reason, start as a hip hinge. Here's what I mean by that. So you get in position, right, whatever you want to do, right there. What you do not want to do is this, that I see people do all the time, where they do this, so they hip hinge first, and then they squat. Okay, regardless of the depth, who cares? This is already bad form. Why? You have engaged the muscles that would have been engaged regardless, and now they're going to be overutilized. It's the reason why so many people who do that, they do this, and then they do this, and this. That's not a squat, that's a good morning, but it's normal that it's a good morning because you did a hip hinge. What you want to do is this. You start with a knee flexion, so notice the difference between this and this. All right, this is straight down. This is back. All right, here I'm pushing my butt back. You do not want to do that. Knees, the knees break, and look, as I go down, magically, the posterior chain is engaged and up. All right, at no point did I force the utilization of the butt. It's going to be used regardless. You cannot do a squat without recruiting that area, so don't worry about that. Again, you don't squat like this, you squat like this, okay? That's the difference. And what that's going to do to you is, it's going to reduce the involvement of the lower back, because as you said, I was able to keep a much more vertical torso. Why? Because I'm actually utilizing the quads. Guess what happens when you do a hip hinge? You remove the utilization of the quads because you reduce the knee flexion. A squat is a lift that you want to do with maximum knee flexion until you reach the desired range of motion. So that's one. That's already fixing a lot of problems because a lot of people squat like this. The worst part with this being also that when you're going to start doing good mornings, you're going to be confused because you're going to good morning the exact same way you squat. And that should tell you that there's a problem. It's the same reason why it always cracks me up when I talk to people about the stiff leg deadlift, because a lot of them tell me, wait, that's how I deadlift. Yeah, it's because you don't know how to deadlift properly. These are different movements. So that's the first one. Secondly, we're going to talk quickly about the grip. In terms of grip, you can go wherever you want, wherever it's comfortable. For people who lack shoulder mobility, you're going to have a tendency to want to go wider. I've found that older men especially tend to go with a forced grip. That being said, shoulder mobility is important and we all have the ability to grab a bar behind our shoulders. It's the reason why also behind the neck presses are not dangerous per se, the load makes them dangerous. So in this situation here, what I recommend is when you start squatting and you warm up, or if you're a novice, you're going to start with a wider grip, and even within the warm up and the progression to the squat, you're going to try and narrow it down, okay? Slowly, no need to rush it, until the point where you find a grip that is tight enough that you can pack the upper back. This is what I mean by pack. When you grab the bar here and you go underneath it, you don't just go underneath. You go underneath, and as you're here, you pack the upper back, okay? So that's a packed upper back, that's unpacked. Packed, unpacked. You want to unpack so that you can put the bar in an optimal placement, up, and as you back, the back, upper back is still packed. You don't do this, okay? At no point do you relax, because if you relax, what is happening? The thoracic extension dies, and therefore, if you go down in the hole, you're much more likely to have a rounded upper spine, and potentially lower spine too, because that's how the spine functions. So packed, tight, okay? And something else that's gonna happen is, as you go down, you might notice that my elbows have went back. But as they really went back, look again, look at my elbows. They've never went back. What happened is my torso leaned forward, and that's fine. Too many people want to say, oh, you want to keep the elbows pointing towards the floor. Guess what? They're pointing towards the floor right now. But as the torso shifts, it looks like they're pointing forward. So that's fine. Do not worry about that. Form modification as you go is fine as long as the upper back is packed, because it means that the arm is not going to move. And why is it important that the arms and the elbows don't move? Because if they do, what's going to end up happening is you're going to start pushing towards the front of you, and you're going to have a much stronger tendency to lean forward, aka do a good morning. And that can be also caused not by just lack of tension, but also by a lack of shoulder mobility. It's going to be tough for you to stay packed, and therefore you're going to try and compensate, because as you do this, you lose, in reality, you move away from the ability of your hands to grab a bar and stabilize it, and you start to push it towards you more and more. And therefore, by default, as you push it, your body starts to lean forward, because it's really tough to balance the bar by just pushing it. It's the reason why if you do low bar, a lot of guys who do low bar, they don't even grab the bar. They're just pushing it. Why? Because the back is already much more horizontal, and therefore it makes total sense. And this is when we get into the discussion of high bar versus low bar. Which one is best? Which one do you prefer? I say try both, just not to die stupid, but I have found personally that for tall men, especially men with long legs, low bar is superior, because the amount of distance you'll have to travel when you go down with the high bar squat is going to be too much. You're going to engage way too much lower back, and at the end of the day, you're just going to squat like this. And that is no good, because you're going to end up hurting your back. So might as well just lean into it and literally lean as you do low bar. And you will find that even though technically the high bar recruits more quads, as a tall man doing low bar is going to help you engage the legs more, because the torso angle is going to remain static. And therefore the posterior chain will not be taking over, and you'll be able to actually push with the legs. It's not applicable to me. I can do high bar just fine, even though technically I do lean forward a little bit more than most people, because I am taller, I have longer leverages. So that's that. If we're going to talk about the range of motion, I'm preparing a full video on range of motion and the form police, and the people who don't understand that as to grass is not an objective value, it's subjective, it depends on the leverages of everyone, and it's not always optimal. And I also prepare a theoretical video about the squat, so I'll be covering that now, but just to make it clear, when you get started, no need to go as to grass, you're just going to get hurt if you don't have the mobility. When you're more advanced, you can start using both full range of motion and partials on the squat, aka parallel, to get the results you want. And if you're a tall man and short men tell you, oh, you need to do as to grass, remind them that your partial travels more distance than their ass to grass. That's going to shut them up real nice. So that's it for the aspects of the squat that I see the most often. As for the butt wink can be damaging to an extent, but I have, I think, already provided you with a good answer. And the answer is, don't go full range if you're not ready for it. If the butt starts going underneath, you can always cut the range of motion beforehand. And if you don't do that thing where you put the butt back before you squat, you'll find that you have much less butt wink as well. So now let's talk about things that I actually never hear discussed at all with the squat. The first one is going to be the re-rack and the unrack. The unrack first. So when you unrack the bar in the squat, what you do not want to do is you do not want to create a situation for you when the following set is going to be a hassle. So as you go, you select your grip. For me, I like this, right? It's fairly narrow, as you can see, because I have narrow shoulders. Go here, go underneath. As I go underneath, as you can see, I'm literally doing a squat, okay? I go underneath, I pack the upper back, I select where I want the bar to be, for me, on top of the traps, because it's high bar. And when I unrack, look at my position, everything is set. I'm not here, okay, I'm not way behind, I'm not here, because this is the best way to fall. I'm right underneath. This is the best leverages. It's going to be easy to unrack the bar. It's the safest. And basically what you do as you unrack is, you do a partial pin squat. That's it. Very easy. Now you're unracked. What you don't want to do is this. You don't want to do that. I see people do that all the time. You're destabilizing the bar on your back and you're losing the tightness that you worked so hard for. So what you want instead is, you unrack, you're here, you're going to take one step, two step, one step, two step, all right? 4 steps is all you need. It's not arbitrary. You can do 6 if you want, maybe even 2. The goal is very simple. You want to create distance with the rack, and with each step, you want to widen your stance. This adds stability, and it should lead to your final stance. Meaning that when you're here, I don't want to see you shuffle your feet all the time and turn every angle. No. You're set. After your 4 feet, you're set, and right there, you can squat. You're in a perfect position to squat and up. Okay? That is very easy. It's very simple. You want to do that also because with heavy weight, the least movement, the least instability you create. And you don't want that bar to be moving when you're going to prepare a squat. So you want it to be perfectly stable. So let's say you did your squat, now you're going to re-rack the bar. Do not do this. I see people do that all the time. It drives me crazy. So you go down for your squat. Okay, right there. You go up, and I see people, they go up, and before they finish the squat, they twist. Do not do this. It is so dangerous. You haven't finished the movement, you're not stable yet, and you're pushing forward with I don't know how many hundreds of pounds on your back. I don't know why people do that. If they're just so in a hurry to finish their set, just don't do it. Finish the rep, lock the knees, it puts you in the strongest position to maintain the bar on your shoulders, and then unrack. If the set is finished, unrack. And the last advice I'm going to give you, I'm going to show you quickly also, is for the same reason, for stability's sake, you unrack, 1, 2, 1, 2, you're here. When you go down, you can go as slow as you want, who cares? I like slow negatives perfectly, like this. When you go up, the positive is explosive, but it's not so dynamic that it puts you out of position. Example. This is bad. I see people do that all the time because they want to show off. It's stupid. If you can squat so fast that the bar comes off your back, either you're using baby weight, and therefore it's a warm-up while you're trying to show off like this, or your top set are also way too light, or you're just giving extra energy to look cool at the top of the positive, but the top of the positive is the least important portion of the movement, and it's the easiest too. Why are you powering through it? I understand you want to build momentum and speed out of the bottom, but you can control it to stop the positive like a normal human and not look like a spaz. And that is it for the squat. If you follow these principles, you're going to remain injury-free, you're going to grow your legs because you'll actually target the legs, and you will be extremely safe as you squat because the squat is a safe lift. Not as safe as the deadlift, but safe regardless. And I'm going to leave you with one strange piece of advice, maybe a little bit TMI, we'll see. I'm going to show you how you can actually help determine when and where the foot position should be when you squat. So in terms of width, it's been discussed a lot. If you have very large hips and waist, you can go wider, even though that's not necessarily always true. I've always said, try and find your stance. Play around. For me, I like a narrow stance, but too narrow destroys my knee. You're going to have to pay attention to knees traveling forward as well. Keep in mind that the travel forward thing of the knee past the toe is stupid, it's not true. The knee can do that, but if you do that too much, you're going to overutilize the quad and underutilize the glute and hamstrings. So there is a balance here. Once you found the width, you're going to find the placement of the feet. Where do they point? Do they point really out and you squat like a duck? Do they point really forward? A lot of people have trouble with that. Well, I'm going to share with you a very simple and very awkward way to determine that. So I'm going to take that box right there. I'm going to put it here. And I'm going to give you a little show. I just want to make sure that I'm going to be in the frame, but I do believe I will be. So the way you can do that actually is, you find a surface, any surface, you're going to put your legs in the air like this, and you're going to flex your glutes, right? You flex your glutes. And as you can see, as I flex my glutes, my feet rotate. It's easier if you do it laying completely still with your feet in the air. It's tougher here. You can really feel it when you're like laying perfectly horizontally. And what you'll find is, as you flex your glutes, your hips naturally are going to also rotate out. It makes your feet rotate out. And I have found that the amount of rotation is going to be relatively corroborated with the amount of rotation that the feet will need and take when you actually do squats. So you can give it a try if you struggle. You can also go through trial and errors, but it's a fun trick hack that I found personally. And it's also a good way to build mind-muscle connection with the glutes. A lot of people say, oh, I don't feel my glutes when I squat. And it's the reason why they tend to put the butt back to over-exaggerate the engagement. Well, you don't need to do that. Just get on your back and flex your glutes. And as you flex them, you'll find that the legs start interacting with the glutes. That can be a good way to build that mind-muscle connection that you can then carry over, because, again, most likely, if you copy that feet rotation on your squat, you might find that the glutes start being activated because it's what they want the feet to be doing in the first place. So don't quote me on that, I don't have a PhD in biomechanics, just a fun trick I wanted to share with you. And I'm actually going to leave you with that. So if you have any questions about the squat in general, let me know. As I say, I'm preparing a video, a full theoretical video on the squat itself. If you want to learn more about leg training, you can also check the description. Thank you for watching, have a good day.